Captain Mark had just flown out of the airport when he was hit by a flock of birds. The worst thing was that all the engines stopped working. The captain didn't know the specific situation of the engine at the time. He just felt that the power suddenly decreased significantly. Every action he took next affected the lives of 155 passengers. He tried to restart, but there was no response. The flight attendants signaled everyone to stay calm. Everyone thought they had just encountered turbulence, but they didn't know that they were racing against death in the cockpit. The co-pilot called the control tower for support. The control tower ordered all flights to be grounded immediately and cleared the runway to assist Flight 1555 to return to the airport. But Mark knew in his heart that at the current altitude, they could not go back. Mark's 45 years of driving experience reminded him that they could only force a landing in the Hudson River. The tower personnel collapsed because the probability of a successful water landing was less than 3%. Mark operated calmly and decisively. The co-pilot cooperated fully beside him. Mark finally adjusted the angle of entry into the water. The plane landed in the Hudson River in an absolutely perfect posture. It did not break or overturn. After gliding for a distance, it stopped steadily in the middle of the river. The front door opened and the life-saving valve popped out smoothly. The emergency exits on both sides were activated. The nearest passengers stood on the wings and waited for rescue. The rescue team completed the rescue in just 30 minutes. The first thing Mark did when he got ashore was to report to his wife that he was safe. The mayor and the police chief wanted to say hello to him, but Mark only cared about one number, which was 155. He wanted to confirm whether all the people on the plane were rescued. At the strong suggestion of the co-pilot, Mark was taken to the hospital for examination. At this time, the union president brought the news that all 155 passengers were rescued safely. The heavy burden on his heart was finally lifted at this moment. He created a miracle. Mark became a hero of the people. The National Transportation Safety Administration invited him to attend the hearing. What Mark did not expect was that this meeting would become his court of trial. The engineer of the Transportation Bureau calculated that under the conditions at that time, the plane had enough time to return. There was no need to risk a water landing. The Transportation Bureau immediately pointed out that the aircraft data showed that the left engine still had thrust and kept running throughout the flight. That meant that Mark's judgment was wrong to stop the two engines. The co-pilot had had enough of these people's faces. A group of people sitting in the office. Why question the savior of more than 100 families? If it weren't for Mark, it would have been a horrific air crash. But the Transportation Bureau immediately produced evidence. Engineers conducted 23 computer simulation tests. All parameters were the same as when Flight 1555 crashed, but the test results were the same. The planes were able to return successfully. Mark felt something was wrong. The obvious feeling in the cockpit was that the two engines had stopped. If he had chosen to return to the airport at that time, the plane would most likely have crashed into downtown New York. If the water landing was proven to be a wrong choice, then Mark's career would be completely over. He had no pension and could not pay the mortgage and had no place to live. Over the past 45 years, it has carried millions of passengers. In the end, these 30 minutes will be the final word. At this moment, Mark was also shaken whether it was really his own misjudgment. But everyone overlooked the most important point, which is the human factor. Whether it was a computer or a real person simulation, they could react immediately after the accident and return to the airport according to the pre-practiced course. But no one told Mark at the time that it was the lowest altitude double-engine parking in history. 155 lives were in his hands. No one had received such emergency training. Everyone needs time to make a judgment. He won himself 35 seconds of reaction time. The second simulation test began. The flock of birds hit the double-engine parking and increased the waiting time by 35 seconds. The pilot controlled the return flight. However, this time, the pilot was powerless. No matter how they saved 1555, they could only crash into the building. The attitude of the Transportation Bureau instantly became completely different from before. There was no tit for tat, but instead, it was replaced by high respect.